traditional point of view, and perhaps from any point of view, because here's the next shtick. The Eis HaLimud, while a person is learning, when he speaks, he has to think no other thought, only Dveikas HaBoiru, Be'eis HaLimud. But when a person is learning, he has to think about the learning. And in this way he'll have the real cleaving onto the divine, the fitting cleaving onto the divine. But tzorach b'chol pam l'aseh b'toy shvei tzchaim l'machazikim bo. And he needs all the time to engage himself in the study of Torah, which is a tree of life for those who cling onto it. But when he speaks only dvarim b'teilim, only mundane things, and he'll rely on his cleaving unto God, in which he's engaged in which he's constantly engaged. He needs to be very careful because he might fall from the dveikus. So the paradoxicality that I'm pointing at here, I think, is obvious. That all of a sudden we have a situation where the constant engagement in Torah study, which is seen to be the traditional ideal for adult males, is viewed as somewhat problematic because it takes you away from dveikus. So you can't be thinking about the Eibishter all the time when you're thinking about the Gemara. You need to think about the Gemara. So, of course, the response to that is subtle. It's somewhat worked out. The response is subtle, it's somewhat worked out. He doesn't say, okay, close the Gemara, just think about God all the time. And on the contrary, he says that if you're just going to say, I'm going to be Dovik, I'm going to cleave unto God, and I don't need to learn. I'm just going to cleave unto God all the time. It doesn't matter what I talk about, because even if I talk about mundane things, I don't talk about Torah, I don't talk about the Gemara. In my mind, in my heart, I'm cleaving unto God. I think about God all the time anyway. So what difference does it make? He says no. He says that if you're going to do like that and you're not going to be learning, you're going to lose the dveikus. When you're speaking Dvarim B'Teilim all the time, you're going to lose the dveikus. You're only going to be able to hold your dveikus if you learn a lot of the time. You're only going to be able to hold your dveikus to maintain yourself. You're only going to be able to maintain yourself in the proper state of cleaving unto God if you learn. But you need to stop learning from time to time in order to think about God and so on. So of course, this is really striking. Of course, this is really striking the way now all of a sudden this business of learning all the time is somewhat problematized. And the Baal Shem Tov is responding to that. That Chassidim might think, how can I learn all the time? I'm afraid to learn too much, because if I learn too much, I'm losing my dveikus. So in response to that, he works it out. No, that the Torah purifies your soul. The Torah makes you so beautiful. The Torah works together with dveikus. Learning Torah will make sure that your dveikus will hold. Learning Torah will make sure that your dveikus will hold even in the time when you're not learning Torah. Learning Torah will make sure that your dveikus will hold even in the time when you're not learning Torah. So now that there's a stress on dveikus, on this in a certain way very high ideal, but it does render problematic, paradoxical, interesting now the relationship between the new ways and the old ways, so to speak. What happens now with Limud HaTorah? What happens now with traditional values, the study of the law, and so on? So the response here is the response that we're reading here is quite is rather subtle. It's rather subtle and so to speak, an attempt is made, I think, to do justice to both sides. That you could have the dveikus, and you should go back to the dveikus from time to time when you're learning, but you need to learn, and you can't just rely on the dveikus, that the dveikus will pull you through when you can't just rely on the dveikus, that the cleaving unto God will pull you through if you just go around talking about mundane matters all the time, and you're not busy with learning and so on. By the way, Reb Chaim Volozhin says in Nefesh HaKaim also that it is permitted to stop from time to time while one is studying in order to think about the Eibishter, that the Torah comes from the Eibishter, and you can have dveikus. I think I'll show it to you. I think he says also that it's a mila, that it's
you're reading now?
No, I'm reading from Tzavos Rivosh.
From where?
I'm reading from Tzavos Rivosh. I'm reading from Tzavos Rivosh. Shivisi Hashem l'negdi summit. Shivisi loshen ishtavis. Shivisi is a loshen of ishtavis. Midas hashtavis. What's midas hashtavis? Ishtavis means, the simple explanation of Shivisi Hashem l'negdi summit, Shivisi means I put God before me all the time. But the Baal Shem Tov here is darshani, Shivisi loshen of ishtavis. Ishtavis means equal, everything is equal. It's all the same to me. Shivisi loshen ishtavis, mechol dova ha'ma'oide, whatever happens to a person, hakoil shova etzlo, it should all be the same to him. Bein be'inyin shem mishabchen b'nei adam oisoi, oy mevazan oisoi. It should all be the same to a person, whether people praise him or people humiliate him, right? This is a tremendously high demand. A person should always be, this is like something like, for those who know, like Stoicism. Whatever the response of the social world is, one needn't be ashamed before anyone. One need be ashamed only before God. It should not matter to a person at all what other people say about him. It should not matter to a person whether people praise him or curse him, revile him. In the first glorious lecture that I gave, I referred to the fact that some of the themes which are sounded in Hasidic writings hark back to the writings of Chassidic Ashkenaz, the medieval German pietists, and that way Hasidism is rooted in hallowed Ashkenazi tradition. Eli Moseson was kind enough to tell me that there's really a whole lot of that, and a lot more than what I mentioned, and that it is believed that I said I don't know if the Hasidic masters had access to these writings, but Eli Moseson told me that they had a sefer Chesed Lavrom from Avrom Azulai, where there are a lot of material is cited therein, a lot of material that goes back to Chassidic Ashkenaz, the medieval Right, the medieval German pietists, and that the Hasidic masters had access to this. Now, this business of Midas HaShtavas was a big thing by Chassidus Ashkenaz. Midas HaShtavas, I think the Chassidus Ashkenaz were the first to speak about this in a big way. I know it was a big thing by Chassidus Ashkenaz. There's a famous story from one of the Chassidus Ashkenaz that one of his Talmidim wrote him a letter, and he said, I want to be a Chassid, I want to really be pious and do the whole thing, do the big thing. But so I need spiritual guidance, and I need to know what I should do, and I need to know what I'm up to, if I'm really holding anywhere. So he wrote it was from the Malach, Avrom Azulai, a different Chassid. So he wrote to his master, to his spiritual guide, his Rebbe in Chassidus and Avodah, one of the Chassidic Ashkenaz. So where am I holding? I need to know I'm holding. I want to be a Chassid. I want to do the thing. So he wrote him back. Tell me, do praise and blame have any effect on you? Do praise and blame have any effect on you? Does it make a difference? If someone praises you, do you feel it? If someone reviles you, if someone curses you out, do you feel it? And he wrote him back. He said, yes, I feel it. Yes, I feel it. So he said, oh, you have nothing to do with Chassidus. You're very far. If you can still feel it when somebody praises you and when somebody blames you, you have nothing to do with genuine piety. Now, of course, we're talking about very high levels, Talking about very high levels, this is way beyond, but the Baal Shem Tov is basically demanding the same thing. The Baal Shem Tov is demanding the same thing. Shivisi, if this is the Baal Shem Tov, it's someone close to the Baal Shem Tov, presumably,